By definition, migration is the movement of one part to another. After learning more about my mother's family history and their migration, I've learned that although you might migrate and you might leave, there is no place like home. This dates back to the turn of the century in a small town in Iowa called Dysart. Dysart, Iowa is where Joseph T. Bell and Elizabeth Bell, my great-great-grandparents, decided to pack up their family of 6 boys, Frank, Clarence, John, Kenneth, Ray, and Joe, and moved from their farm in hopes of beginning a successful ranching operation in Wyoming. Joseph T. Bell and his family arrived in Cheyenne, Wyoming in the early 1900s, where he purchased the Polo Ranch. The Polo Ranch was named after the English settlers who played polo on the ranch, and in 1910, the Polo Ranch became the home for the Bell brothers. Later, the ranch was passed down to John and Marie Bell, my great-aunt and uncle. The Bell family was extremely close. However, tragedy struck when Clarence, my great-uncle, died of the flu during World War I, which left Frank, my great-grandfather, and John, my great-uncle, as the eldest brothers. They assumed major responsibilities in the day-to-day family operations. However, all the brothers returned home in the assistance of herding the cattle, which was on over 100,000 acres of land. The success of the family operation depended on each son being an active member of the family. This grew to be very true because as years passed, the Bell brothers remained close to the ranch in order to help, as well as they remained close to one another. Frank Bell, my great-grandfather, suddenly died due to heart failure, leaving behind his wife Nora and their beautiful daughter Norma, my grandmother. Soon after Frank's death, John Bell assumed the role of young Norma's father and did whatever he could for her and Nora. As years passed, Norma got older. She attended the University of Wyoming, where she met her soon-to-be husband, John Morris, my grandfather. John Morris and Norma Bell wed in 1952, and John Bell gave Norma away at the wedding. John and Marie Bell offered the Morrises an opportunity to stay within the family operations with the Polo and Bell Ranch, and the Morrises accepted. John Bell taught John Morris everything he needed to know about ranching as well as the ranching business. The two worked very closely together for 20 years until John and Marie both passed, leaving John and Norma Morris the Polo Ranch. John and Norma lived on the ranch in what was known as the Shellback House, where they welcomed 3 beautiful daughters, Betsy, Karen, my mother, and Marcy. The 3 girls grew up on a ranch with endless land, beauty, and imagination. All 3 girls attended the University of Wyoming. However, my mother was the only one to migrate to the East Coast. My mother transferred to NYU in order to become an actress. In 1975, she became part of Ryan's Hope, which was a soap opera, and in that same year she met my father, Kirk Gowdy Jr. My parents wed in 1979 and welcomed twins Catherine Redmond Gowdy and Charlotte Taylor Gowdy in 1987. 9 years later, they welcomed Grace Elizabeth Gowdy into their lives. Best day of their life. Ever since I can remember, I've spent every summer on my family's ranch, and I have experienced the most incredible and beautiful memories in my entire life. When my grandparents Norma and John Morris passed away 3 and 2 years ago, the ranch was passed down to my mother and her 2 sisters. Although the ranch will never be what it was when my grandparents were alive, it has now become a place of new times and new memories. This has not only taught me about the power and the importance of migration, but it's also taught me about the importance of accepting change. Through migration causes change, and throughout not only my history, but everyone's family history, change occurs as well as migration, for the good and the bad. I sit here understanding where I come from and why, and that is because my ancestors were determined to create a better life for their family, and through that determination created migration to Cheyenne, Wyoming. That migration impacts me and will continue to impact me as long as I live, because Cheyenne, Wyoming is a place I can always call home. I've also come to the realization that the power of migration isn't just a physical movement, but an emotional and spiritual journey. I have traveled to Denver, Colorado to be closer to my family tradition and to experience the Polo Ranch in new and old ways. I'm here because of my family's migration. However, I'm here because my family cherished a piece of land, and that is so much more than just a piece of land. It is my family history and a place that I will always be able to call home.